The leader of the delegation that went to the African Parliament is the Honorable Member of Parliament for Pekwai and the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament in the person of Mr. Joe Osei. Seated on the right-hand side of the chairman is Honorable Member of Parliament for Asawase, Alhaji Mubarak Muntaka. Honorable Collins Dowda is the Member of Parliament for Efitivi South. At my extreme left is Mr. Eric Owusu-Mensah, Deputy Clerk, Finance Administration and General Services, and also the clerk or the clerk to the delegation. Without much ado, I call on Mr. Samuel Obing, the Executive Director of PN Africa and Head of Secretariat of the African Parliamentary Press Network, to give us the purpose of this briefing session.
Ghana's Parliament and of course Ghana's delegation to the Pan-African Parliament, the Deputy Clerk of Parliament and Clerk to the delegation, members of staff of the Parliamentary Service who have worked hard to coordinate this, colleagues from the media. Good morning once again, and I bring you warm greetings from the Secretariat of the African Parliamentary Press Network, which is hosted at Parliamentary Network Africa, based here in Accra, Ghana. For 19 years, the Pan-African Parliament has existed, had its presence in Midrand, South Africa, where every country in Africa sends in a delegation of 5 members of their parliament to represent the peoples of Africa in the work that the Pan-African Parliament does. But over the years, 3 major challenges have plagued the Pan-African Parliament. Chief of them all, of course, is the issue regarding the ratification of the protocol to the Constitutive Act of the African Union relating to the Pan-African Parliament. And this is simply that document that must be ratified by as many countries within the African Union as possible, that gives full legislative powers to the Pan-African Parliament. The second challenge being the visibility of the Pan-African Parliament. So the fact that we have a continental parliament, yet very few of us knows that it exists. And the third, so far as we are concerned, is what some people who follow the Pan-African Parliament consider as the lack of mechanisms to ensure that members of the Pan-African Parliament who represent their countries in Midrand, South Africa, come back home and account to their people on what happened in South Africa, the Pan-African Parliament. It is for this reason that Parliamentary Network Africa, in collaboration with the Pan-African Parliament, set up the African Parliamentary Press Network, a network of journalists who report from parliaments across the continent with the aim of ensuring that there will be maximum visibility for the Pan-African Parliament in the work that they do, but also to allow for a group of journalists in the various countries to understand what the Pan-African Parliament does so well that they can ask the right questions of the delegations that goes to the Pan-African Parliament whenever they are back. There's been a series of activities that the African Parliamentary Press Network has engaged in, including having country chapters in presently in 30 countries, 30 AU member countries, across the continent. Among the series of activities is activities to provide visibility to the Pan-African Parliament. So collaborating with various media houses to ensure that whatever goes on in Midrand, South Africa, people will get to know about it. But this novelty, this new one of ensuring that there will be regular press briefings of Pan-African Parliament delegations when they are back in their countries, is one that has just begun. And I'm happy to announce that Ghana is only the second country to be doing this after the Gambia, which had theirs a few weeks ago. We joke in the office that perhaps the Gambia started because the West African caucus chair is from the Gambia, so he was able to lobby for his country to be first. But we are happy that today we are seeing this. For those of us who have the privilege to cover the Pan-African Parliament as civil society, but also as coordinating media to do so, we see the hard-working efforts of Ghana's delegation to the Pan-African Parliament always. at committee levels where they are deeply involved, and I'm sure that we'll get to understand the kinds of work that they do as individual members of the delegation, and also at plenary level where they are deeply revered. I know that Ghana is one of the countries where, at the very least, you have members of the press and members of parliament from other countries being able to mention the names of a few of perhaps all of our members on the Ghanaian delegation, because they are very active participants at the Pan African Parliament. And it's important that the press, those of us who report from Ghana's parliament, know these. It's important that we get to understand the work they do. It is important that we get to cover the work they do at the Pan African Parliament, so that the people of Africa, the Ghanaian people, can get to realize what is going on. It is for this reason that we've met here today, and we are looking forward to a very interesting conversation where we'll get to understand what went on from the recently held session of the Pan-African Parliament, and also have us, members of the press, ask relevant questions to deepen our understanding of the Pan-African Parliament. It is our hope that beyond today, we would broaden the collaboration between the delegation and members of the media, between PN Africa as Secretariat of the APP and members of the Parliamentary Press Corps here in Ghana, so that we can together, promote the cause of parliamentary information, making parliamentary information available to the people, which is at the core of the work that we do as members of the media. On this note, let me add my voice to welcome you all and to thank you for making time to join us this morning. We look forward to a fantastic conversation.
My fellow delegates to the Pan-African Parliament, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the media, a delegation of Pan-African Parliament, of Ghana's Parliament to the Pan-African Parliament is made up of 5 members. It's always led by the first deputy speaker. This is my second term as a member of the Pan-African Parliament. My other colleagues have been introduced to you. 2 of them are not here yet. The Honorable Chief Whip of the majority, Honorable Anodompre, and Honorable Ophelia Hayford, Honorable Member for Infantiman, the East or West? Infantiman, yes. That makes us 5. Now, as has been mentioned by the speaker before me, Pan-African Parliament is hardly visible to the Ghanaian. A few years ago, after my first term as a member, I was interviewed by the press from South Africa. I asked them, and they asked me, how do Ghanaians know about the Pan-African Parliament? And I said, when I go to my constituency and I tell them that I lead Ghana's delegation to the Pan-African Parliament, they ask me what we do there. That explains the depth of knowledge and understanding of what Pan-African Parliament is about. But briefly, I should say that the Pan-African Parliament was set up by the AU to ensure the participation of the people of Africa in the economic integration of Africa. It is believed that if the representatives of the people participate at a forum in which major decisions relating to the full integration of Africa, as opposed to the OAU, which was rather more about a political union. The AU was set up largely to encourage and to promote economic integration. So the Parliament of the Pan-Africa was to ensure that the everyday people, led by their representatives, could participate in decisions to ensure that we achieved economic integration. It is out of that AFCTA has been born, and Ghana is lucky to have been elected to host the Secretariat. A protocol was adopted for that purpose, and to bring it into full force, it is expected that a certain number of countries will ratify the protocol. Ghana has done that, and I recall that Honorable Muntaka, who is a senior member of the delegation to Pan-African Parliament, as soon as we joined in 2017, 2018, he drew my attention that Ghana has not ratified it. So we immediately sought audience with the Minister for Foreign Affairs, and steps were immediately taken, and the protocol was brought to the House for it to be ratified. So Ghana is fully ratified. But it is not sufficient just to have ratified it. It is expected that Ghanaians will understand what it is that the Pan African Parliament represents, and this opportunity to interact with the media, for me, is one of the biggest steps the delegation could take to make sure that we present this part of our work as representing the people of Ghana in the Pan African Parliament to the people. I'm sure that when you have the opportunity to ask questions, you will ask questions which will demonstrate that you need to be further informed in these matters. Even though after every session we present a report to Parliament, beyond my friend from APN, I hardly see or read any member or any any media house publish the report of the Pan African Parliament, even though after every session we present a report to the House. But it ends there in the House. If you want the information in the House, every one of them, it's there. But how we take that information from here to the people of Ghana leaves a lot to be desired. Probably we have not gotten into any scandal yet. If we did, it would have been news. But I'm happy to report that in the last 7, 8 years or so, we have regularly filed a report of the Pan African Parliament. We use this opportunity to invite you to take active interest in what happens in the Pan African Parliament, ask questions relating to what we do there and what Ghanaians should expect from its delegation. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Speaker. The head of the delegation rightly said. Our anticipation is that your questions will bring out a lot more. But just as a way of introduction, to also further introduce the matter, yes, we are 5 of us, like the leader rightly said, and the interesting thing is that 2 of you cannot be on the same committee. So 5 of us, so all of us serve on different committees. I know Honorable Colin Zelda is on the Transport Committee of the African Parliament, and Honorable Anudon is on the Environment Committee. The first Deputy Speaker is on the Rules Committee, and I'm also on the Finance Committee, and graciously I even chair the Finance Committee of the Pan African Parliament. Then our colleague Honorable Ophelia is also on the Women Caucus, and I think she's on cooperation. That's international corporations. Well, colleagues in the media, like the first British speaker rightly said, yes, we need to get 28 countries to ratify for it to become a fully fair parliament of the continent. It is sad that since 2004, when the idea came of having a continental parliament, we have still not been able to get 28 countries to ratify to enable us get the parliament well constituted. So currently what we do is purely advisory. And some of the things that we do in the Pan-African Parliament is model laws. So for example, my committee on finance, we did model law on, we currently are doing model law on cooperatives. We're also doing model law on, we'll finish with, I'm just forgetting one of the model laws that we have done. What we do is that we do that model law, then we send it to AU. Then what AU does is that countries that have not yet done their laws and they are in the process of making those laws will use that as a kind of source document. So we try to do a lot of
those model laws. So you have most of the committees in PAP, that's what they try to do. But because it's advisory, it is not mandatory, it's not binding on the individual member states to adhere necessarily to the test in full. As all of us may know, just as it's happening in other parts of the world, you know, apart from the United States of America, that came into existence before the OAU. In fact, the European Union is after we have had OAU before the European Union was able to come together. Yet they have almost all the structures and they have virtually have an European Parliament. They are able to put up laws that is binding on almost all their member states. They have a lot of other things that they do in common. That's what we are anticipating to be able to have. And it is our firm belief that the African people can never benefit from our natural resources if we are not integrated. Because so long as we stay in this silo form, it's going to be a continuous kind of challenge. Well, if Togo alone is prosperous, all of us from Ghana, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire will all be trooping there and we're going to collapse it. So the only way we'll be able to survive as a continent is when all of us are doing well and if we are properly integrated. And one of the things is that as you may know, we are encouraging the regional blocks, and we have five regional blocks that Africa, the Pan-African Parliament or the AU recognizes. We have the ECOWAS block, we have the EALA block, that's the East Africa, we have the Central Africa, we have the North Africa, and then we have the South African blocks. And each block is encouraged to come together so that to make integration easier. Unfortunately, we've all seen the challenges that are coming up in most of the continent, in the blocks, especially Central, East, and West. And West is hardest hit because we currently have Mali suspended, we have Burkina Faso suspended, we have Guinea Conakry suspended. And only yesterday we woke up to the news, bad news of Niger also going down. It clearly shows that there's something that as Africans we need to go back to the drawing board. We can never run away from one fact. Yesterday on the floor we were reiterating it because of the conference organized by the Pentecost Church. If we want to take democracy the way the Europeans and Americans have taken it and are implementing, want to just implement the hook, line, and sinker, we are definitely going to have the kind of problems that we are having because the dividend is not showing for the ordinary African citizens. And this is putting a big challenge to the political leaders like myself and those who are even beyond what we call above us, that we need to go back to the drawing board if we want this run of democracy to survive. Because if you look at what is happening across the continent, it was discussed in our last sitting, the challenges in Sudan. How on earth should Sudan run into the kind of challenges that they are having? That two military groups will start fighting and they are just throwing bombs and missiles on the innocent people. What kind of democracy will give birth to that kind of situation? Look at what is happening in Chad. Look at the jihadists in the Sahel. This clearly is telling us that there's something that as the African continent we need to be able to sit down and look at. And the only way to be able to do that, if you have the continental parliament, that is a combination of all of us. So we discuss the issues dispassionately away from home, where all of us will put the issues on the table and be able to find solutions to them. That if the parliament itself is not currently, if decisions are not mandatory, it's still advisory. It tells you the challenges that you continue to have because once it's advisory, how much more can you do? And one of the biggest challenges that we've been having as a continental parliament, which is even at the advisory level, is a deliberate attempt to stifle it of resources. When it was started in 2006, it used to get about 10% of the total budget of the AU. And around that time, the total budget of the AU was about $168 million. Over the years, the budget of AU has grown, and yet the contribution towards or the chunk or the share of the continental parliament has been dwindling. Today, the budget of the AU is almost 700 million US dollars, and the Pan African Parliament is getting just 1%, just a little more than 1%. And it is getting the numbers of 18 years ago. 18 years ago, when they were having about just about 168 million as the total budget of the AU, the Pan African Parliament was getting about 11 million, which was then around 9-10% of the budget. Today, the budget is almost 700 million. Pan African Parliament in 2024, they are projected to give them only 10.2 million, less than what they were getting 18 years ago. So you see that because the ordinary citizens of Africa are not very familiar with the continental parliament, decision makers at the AU are taking advantage of that and are crippling the continental parliament, because you know what parliaments that I mean what every parliament is supposed to do. They are supposed to challenge the executives. They are supposed to put them to check. They are supposed to what we call it, play oversight on them. And no one wants an oversight on himself or herself. So the simplest thing to do is to deny the organ its oxygen, so you will not be able to play those oversight. I'll just, before maybe I take my seat, I'll just give you one typical example of one of the work that we did. And I say that this work was so commendable that it needed to be known by every African in the continent. In 2017, the Pan African Parliament decided that Sudan was having so much sanction that it was affecting students, it was affecting medical supply, it was affecting the railway section, almost everything was crippling in Sudan. And Pan African Parliament decided to take it as a project and send 5 missions. Interestingly, I was part of the mission throughout. There was no corner of Sudan that we didn't go to talk to the ordinary people, taking videos, taking evidence, how it's affecting them. I mean, you were in Sudan, you could not even pay for anything using visa card because Sudan was on sanction. Students could not get scholarship to travel abroad because they are Sudanese. Medical equipment like MRI, CT scan, when they break them, you can't even buy parts. So you go and you see queue almost in every hospital. We took all these videos. And an African Parliament decided that we should embark on a trip to the United States to talk to America. And graciously, I was also part of the team. We met the Senate, we met the House of Reps, we met the Congressional Black Caucus. We made them see the reality of the challenges of their action. Even with all due respect, it was President Trump, and we know his attitude towards Africa and the other continents. He was able to review the sanction and lifted the sanction and left it to only the leadership. This was one of the work that Pan African did. And I thought it was so commendable and every African needed to know. But nobody knew about how Sudan got its sanction lifted. Nobody even knew that it was the work of Pan African Parliament that got Sudan off the part of their problem, that we call it. So we want to encourage you to report on what we do. I know in many other countries they have a challenge because some of the members themselves they will go, they don't fully participate, they don't report back home what's happening. Like the speaker, first British speaker said, we have made it mandatory upon ourselves. Each time we go, we have to report. Your interest will make all of us even sit up. Because if I know that you are watching, I'm using your taxpayers' money because in Pan African Parliament, it is not Pan African Parliament that pay for me to go. It is my country that will have to pay for me to go and sustain me there for the period that I will be staying there. So it's your taxpayers' money that is being used to finance me to go. If I go and I don't participate actively. I'm supposed to go there and supposed to stay and be participating in the activities, and I go and I'm only staying in the hotel and not participating actively. I'm short-chaining you. Now, because you are not taking interest, you don't even know, let alone to bring it up. So, I want to encourage you to take interest in what we do. It's the only way that we, the members from Ghana, will continue to do even more to represent Ghana, to represent you, And I'm sure with what we are doing, I saw the Gambian one, how it was put on social media and other things. Other countries are saying it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's part of the reason it put pressure on us because we thought that we are senior to Gambia. Why should Gambia take the lead to do this? I mean, now that we are doing it, I'm sure where the president himself is coming from, Zimbabwe, we'll be asking themselves, hey, if the president of Zimbabwe is from Zimbabwe, why should Zimbabwe not also do it its people? Through that, we'll begin to conscientize the people of Africa and they'll get to know exactly what we are doing there. And I'm sure that's the only way we will be held accountable. You will know what the African continent is about, and gradually we'll be able to unite our people. So I want to thank you sincerely once more for the opportunity. And I know there may be question on, so if we finish ratifying and become a continental parliament, how are we going to be elected? You know, in the United States, every state has its own internal laws, how they elect their senators and their reps. That's the same thing. It's not going to be a kind of one fit all. Every country will have its method. And I was suggesting to the then foreign minister when we were trying to rectify, I said, look, it will become easy for us. Instead of us getting the whole Ghana to elect what we call the five people, we will get our members of parliament here to elect the people as a way of start to be able to reduce the cost of election in our country. We can get the members of parliament here to elect the members based on a certain formula. Because one of the things that Pan African Parliament also adheres to, there should be women representation. In fact, when the protocol is rectified fully, the representation of women will move from the current 20% to 40% because you are supposed to have two women, not one. You are supposed to have at least two women and three gents. So through that, you use that formula and get people to be elected. In the East African Parliament, they have started because within the East Africa, they've been able to ratify this differently than the way ECOWAS is doing. Because currently, what ECOWAS is doing is just like Parliament sends reps. But in Yala, they elect. It is in Uganda that I know. It is their parliament that will elect their representative to go. So I saw that as a good model. If we are starting, Ghana will pick that, and that will make it a bit easier. So without taking all the space, let me pause here and hope that your questions will bring out many more details. Thank you very much.
Just to add a little to what my colleagues have said, particularly with regards to the way we work in the Pan-African Parliament. Honorable Munchaka has indicated that the committee system that we are familiar with in the Parliament of Ghana also works in the Pan-African Parliament. Besides, but in the Pan-African Parliament, besides the committee system, we also have the caucuses as a way of ensuring effective participation. We have the Western Caucus, we have the Eastern Caucus, the Northern Caucus, the Southern Caucus, and the Central Caucus. These caucuses are put in place to ensure that there is effective participation in the work of the Pan-African Parliament. I thought I should add that one. But Mr. Speaker, I won't add anything because having been in politics for this long, I know when the press calls you, they have their own views, they have their own agenda, and therefore you can talk and talk and talk and talk. You will be talking about things that they are not interested in. They have their questions right in their pockets, and irrespective of what you say, they will ask their questions. I get sometimes annoyed when you have the opportunity to address. After your official address, you are called aside by the press. It's as if you didn't do anything, or all you said was nonsense. So, because you have your questions, I'll just end here and wait for your questions. Thank you.
Life of each family. So you have stated over the second ordinary session. And does it mean you also have 4 years Or what? Tell me something about it.
Use this opportunity to welcome you and to say that we are grateful to you for this opportunity. In fact, we're talking about the protocol. You know, the first protocol that created the Pan-African Parliament, the expectation was that after 5 years, there would be a review. So the Pan-African Parliament was supposed to be a consultative and deliberative and advisory organ of the AU. After 5 years, the review did not take place. So the Pan-African members themselves started to agitate for a change because the president had been there for 5 years and they were expecting after 5 years to give way for another election to be conducted. But because the protocol had not been reviewed, the rules were not very clear. So it was after that the AU decided to review the protocol and then to put in place other measures and to make the Pan-African Parliament a legislative arm of the AU. That protocol has been passed and is supposed to be ratified by, before it comes into force, it's supposed to be ratified by 28 African countries. And last time in May, 19 or 20, 15 countries have ratified the agreement. So it's a challenge. So after 2009, when the members agitated and then they all was like, everybody will cool each other or something, Parliament started to review the rules and agree that there will be elections every 3 years. There will be elections every 3 years. So now from 2009 2010, we have the 3 year mandates. And that is why we started the first parliament, the second parliament, we are now the sixth parliament. So from 2010 about to have a second parliament, and now we are continuing. The term is 3 years. But the problem now is that because the protocol has not been ratified, if you lose, we don't have permanent members. They are members of parliament. So if you lose your seats in your own country, you lose the seat in parliament. If you become a minister, you lose your seat. It is only for MPs. Only for MPs. So because of that, the turnover is very high. It's very, very high. And that is why there is a need for the agreement, the protocol to be ratified, so that you have permanent members and you have a definite term. If it's 4 years, until the 4 years tenure ends, you will continue to be a member until you are, I mean, there is another election. So that is one of the difficulties and the problem that we have. The second one is that like the ECOWAS Parliament, the allowance, everything is paid by the ECOWAS Parliament. But in our case, the country, the various countries are supposed to sponsor their MPs to South Africa. And the South African countries are unable to sponsor them. So you have some absentees. So if you come to meeting, the government are taking a decision and you give the numbers, then it becomes a problem. So you ask, is quorum determined by the number of members represented here by their countries or those who are present in the chamber or present during the session? So we have that problem. The other problem has to do with the election of the president and members of the bureau, because the protocol has still not been ratified. And the new protocol is supposed to be rotation. There we have 5 blocks. The first president was from Tanzania, East Africa. Then the second one was from Central Africa. Central Africa. Yes. Then the third one was from West Africa, Nigeria. Then from Nigeria, we are expecting that it will go to either Southern Africa or North Africa. Then the Central Africans came in to contest. there was a bit of rallies there, but they allowed. Then the second time, they came, and then the Southern Caucus no, this time we will not accept. So you remember, there was a time that we went to back during South Africa, and it was adjourned abruptly because for 3 continuous days, we were not agreeing to elect a president. So for 1 year, and the COVID also came in. So from there, we don't need to find out about the AU invited all the caucuses to Addis Ababa to try and resolve the issue before we were able to agree that it should be going to the Southern Caucus, and then the man from Zimbabwe won the election. So every democratic African country is represented by 9 members. The ECOWAS is based on the size of the population, but the Pan-African Parliament is 5 for each African country. Thank you.
In ours, we have 2 sessions in a year, and then 2 committee meetings. 2 ordinary sessions, and then 2 committee meetings. I mean, extraordinary can be called, but the ordinary ones are 2, which is in May, usually, and then in October. Then we have 2 committee sessions, lasting about a week, maximum 2. The main session, the protocol can go up to a month, but usually we do 2 weeks because of the same constraint and resources. Usually we do 2 weeks. So that one is in May and October, and then the committee meetings are in March and August usually. But sometimes when there are challenges, you see the March flowing into April, and then the August sometimes also flowing into September. Then you have the May sometimes also flowing into June, and then the October sometimes also flowing into November. So that's the addition that I wanted to have.
Okay, I think my colleagues have sufficiently covered. Just to specifically answer the question. Ours is defined by the term of the president. So after every 3 years, it is assumed that one parliament has ended and a new parliament is elected by the leadership. So 3 years we go round. Probably what is critical is the requirement that it rotates around the caucuses. Otherwise, some caucuses are better than others, and they're likely to dominate. These are some of the things that we have organization. So we actually had to fight together, aligned with the Southern caucus, but the Eastern and Western African caucuses were big and they were bullying the others. So the next from here, we are going to the Northern caucus. They are also not presented the presidential candidates yet. So this is where we are as of today.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead with your question.
This Parliament passed the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2022. And we are also aware that at the Pan-African Parliament, there is a law, model law on anti-witchcraft bill. I want to know how that will influence in the Pan-African Parliament.
Okay. So,
last meeting, we heard or we got the information that you were having difficulties with your family as to how you'll be able to continue to hold your meetings even for this year. What I want to find out is, has that challenge that you were having with your finances from the aid been resolved? And are the meetings that are ahead of us going to be able to come? Because the last time, the Committee of Finance Chair, Honorable Mr. Kamobara, didn't miss words at all. He said that if something is not done, then you will not be able to have your meeting coming in November or in October, August. So we want to know how that has been resolved and whether we're going to have a meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, let's permit the speaker to respond. 3 questions. So let's
Okay. The first one is on the model law. The model law is a model. It's an example, it's a guide. So the Pan-African Parliament's role as we speak now, it's advice. So when we create a model law, is to guide all African countries. We will craft the law on witchcraft. This should guide you. So for what we have done, would have been influenced by what is contained in that law. I recall when we were doing the right of information, we took an African one and we went with it clause by clause. That what was proposed by the ministry was pitched against what the AU had enacted, and then we used that as a guide by which we came to. So in the same way, we cannot implement it directly, but it will influence how we craft our law. That is the essence of it. Now, would you like to speak about the oversight? Or I should speak, okay, let me talk about oversight. Now, because as we speak, we don't have the commensurate number to give us the legislative power fully. Our oversight rule now is still by way of advice. But the AU Commission, which we have to oversee, has its mandate fully. We can advise on what to do, but if we have been fully ratified, then their budget will have to be approved by the Parliament. As of now, we can only comment and we can point out and we can negotiate them back. We don't have the oversight rule as we speak. It is presumed that when we are fully fledged Parliament, then the role assigned to all parliaments in respect of other organs, the executive organs, will be played by Parliament. But we don't see ourselves in competition. We complement each other. The honor, even in oversight, we are complementing to ensure that rules and purposes for which budgetary allocations are made are followed, and then the outcomes are what you get. I think I'm okay. Now, as for the funding report, it's a little bit check
Let me say, your observation is very, very right. Yes, like the first deputy speaker is saying, he's being very diplomatic. I have been there at AUC and the fight. You currently have an advisory. We currently have an advisory, what we call powers, or maybe with our own advice. Now you have committees and other organs that clearly see that when we become a fully fledged legislation, virtually there will have to be no resistance. And the one that is, in my view, follows the biggest threat is the Permanent Representative Council. The Permanent Representative Council are the various countries' ambassadors who are in Addis Ababa. So they represent their countries, and therefore, because their countries contribute and do everything through them, they currently are playing one of the functions of the Pan-African Parliament, which is the budget oversight. And you just don't understand sometimes the way they perceive us. To the extent that in last year's Executive Council meeting, the heads of state have to instruct that they have to go into a workshop with us, with Pan-African Parliament, to be able to iron out differences. And what we met in December last year, I was part of because I chaired the Finance Committee. And for 2 days, you could see they were struggling to show where the challenges are. And you can see purely, it is simply like protecting a child. They've been doing this for years. What will mean is that if we are fully fledged parliament, obviously there are, but even currently their budget, the budget of AU is supposed to come to Pan-African Parliament for us to make comments and advice. Even that they don't want to do. And one of the things that they will always try to do, they have a subcommittee of finance, the PRC, they call the F15. And they deal with the currently Ghana is living in a on that F15. And if you see the way sometimes they want to treat, just like our executives in our new parliaments do, they want to treat parliament like a department of the executives. Currently, that's how they are treating us. They are treating us if we are just any organ, but we are not. All the organs there, whether it is the AFTA, whether it is the NEPA, they are to help the executives. So we are like another arm. They don't want to recognize that. And they keep saying that, no, 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 we are not yet a parliament. We are just advisors. So just keep to the advisory. And I thought that as also your opinion of advice is that we should just do only that. We shouldn't do committee work. We shouldn't even call you to question you on anything. So you will see when they are looking at the budget, they say, oh, this item, already NEPA is doing it. So council will go and team up with NEPA to do it. I said, no, we are playing oversight of NEPA. They said, no, no, we are not supposed to play, we are supposed to be advising. I said, how do we advise if we don't get to know what NEPA is doing? So we have this challenge, and you believe it, in the 2024 budget, NEPA has 3 times the amount of money that Panama Farmers is allocated. And I see it as a big abnormality. But that's the challenge that we are having. To come to the specific issue of funding, we just had the mid-year, what do you call it, meeting of the executive council in Nairobi. And Panama Farmers, a small group were there to talk about this budget thing. And the usual thing, just as they did last year in Zambia, was to say that, oh, we should come up with supplementary. And I remember very well telling one foreign minister, I said, look, how can we do the same thing and expect a different result? In 2020, you give us a budget of 20 billion. Then we run into our own problems of fighting over the election. Then 2021, you brought the budget to 12.9 from 20 billion to 12.9. Then there was COVID, so we couldn't really utilize it. Then 2022, you brought it down to 11.9. Then in 2022, even when we operated half year, we have to come with supplementary budget that you have to give us our 600,000 to finish 2022. Now you go to 2023, from the 11.9, you bring up to 11.2, and you are saying that we should come with supplementary again. And even preparing 2024, you push it down to 10.2. Then you are meaning that every year we have to come with, then there's some deliberateness because you are saying that it is not enough. So you want us to always come to beg, then supplementary will be considered for us to finish the year. So this year, for example, they are saying that we come supplementary. And we are told that the earliest the supplementary budget could be considered will be after the first week of September. It means that we may have to have a second, what we call it, our committee meeting beyond the first week of September. What we are supposed to have it in August, because we don't have money. Can you imagine that in 2022, we were giving 900,000 for committees. It wasn't enough. They had to supplement it with about 300,000 for us to finish about 1.2. Then in 2023, when we wrote 900 million, they now got it to 500. And now they are saying that we should write a supplementary. And I said, what kind of chess game is this? And sometimes they say me, I'm not diplomatic. I say, yes, I don't know how to be diplomatic about the truth. We are so blunt that you are just killing the parliament. And you are saying that we should be diplomatic about it. How diplomatic do you want us to be? You gave me money that was not sufficient. And I had to come and beg for you to chop it up. Then the following year, you even reduced it further. And said I should still come for the supplementary. Well, but that's the thing. So we are hoping that the committee meeting may not happen in August, but it may come up in September. And then if the supplementary budget is really considered in September, so we currently need about 3.2 billion to finish the year. If it is considered, then it will mean that we can have the committee meeting in September and straight ahead plan the main session, the October session, may either come October 9 or maybe
first or second week of November. So that's what we are hoping. Thank you. If there are no democratically elected governments, they cannot act. And any time there's a native intervention, the only institution that ceases to exist is parliament. So in real sense, when we say democracy, it's parliament. Okay. That we have had our own experiences in the past. The judiciary continued to exist. The executive, instead of being called the president, is changed. The name is changed. But other AFRC chairman or PNDC chairman, but the executive continued to operate. Parliament is disbanded, and then the people's representatives are no longer in the equation. So anytime there's a coup in any country, then a major threat to the existence of Pan-African Parliament has occurred. So if you check the news, the president of the Pan-African Parliament issued a very strong statement condemning the coup. Unfortunately, that's all we can do. That's all we can do. If we had command of the military forces, we probably would have ordered them to go and restore democracy. But the AU president will talk. Probably they'll send people to negotiate and things like that. But unfortunately, well, the biggest challenges true when Pan-African Parliament went into crisis was when a representative of the country, which lost their democracy, yet it insisted that the military government has asked her to come to Pan-African Parliament. Not only that, she also wanted to be president of Pan-African Parliament. We had to fight tooth and nail to prevent that from happening. Because you are not entitled to come here. You are no parliament, you know. So if you are not careful, and she had succeeded, that would have ended our democracy, because then anybody would claim that the junta sent him or her and would have been there. But we were very resolute that that should not happen. Incidentally, in Ghana and Nigeria, we were very fair on that matter. So you cannot. Oh, well, unfortunately, you know, from our caucus, West African caucus, and the two West African countries, too fair that we cannot permit a representative of a military junta to be in a Pan-African Parliament. They are not supported incidentally. But straight to your question, every military takeover is a threat to the existence of the Pan-African Parliament. If we were to have a standby army of the continent, how useful would it be? We all remember how the agenda was forced out of Gambia. When he lost election, and the ECOWAS, Ghana, Nigeria, the few others said, look, if you don't, we are sending military to flush you out. Because Gambia was small, it was easier to do that. Now, if the country is big in terms of any size and population, you can't. But if you have a standby army, that makes it easy. And the biggest problem is that they are all heads of states. Because of their own behavior and attitude, they sometimes forget that it's a double-edged sword. Because when we have a standby army, when you are also maltreating your people, the army will come and flash you, even though you are legitimate, but you cannot be civil. We cannot sit and watch you maltreat your people, like it's happening in Sudan. So our heads of states keep dragging their feet about the standby army for Africa. Secondly, the international community who are exploiting our resources, they know that if we have a standby army, that they will now have one space control in Africa. Our resources will be monitored, so you cannot simply just come and negotiate with the Nigerian government and start exploiting its people, or you cannot go and create a program in DRC. You have an army that will fight you from the African Union. So both the international perpetrators who are exploiting our resources are not for it. And it is only when it gets to them, they are overthrown or they are having major challenges, then they really wish there was a bigger army that would come and save them. But when they are comfortable, They just don't want it. So like the first thing is because it does affect how we operate. Because sometimes you will have very fantastic reps who are really working very hard to protect what we call it then their country there's something and they have to withdraw. Currently our chair of the women caucus is from Niger, Amina. I mean she cannot come. I think the control or something. Is it cooperation? It's also from even the West African caucus. One of our leaders is from Niger. So that means if we go to the next meeting, we have to replace all of them. How can you run the parliament when you are frequently changing its leaders and the membership? Obviously, that parliament will continue to be weak, just as our individual countries' parliaments are. Let me admit, despite all our challenges in Ghana, we seem to be like 9 steps ahead of most of our colleagues across the continent. And like the United said, so it makes us look like we are the King Kongs in Africa when we go to power. We are virtually there. And sometimes I look at that and say, we don't know what's happening back home.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. For me, we need to look at the church who, in the countries where there are military interventions, I am sure the military council is a threat to the media. It is a threat to the parliament of every country. So we better set up and watch where things are going wrong. Let's say it. Let's talk about things that are wrong in our countries. That way we're protecting not only the country, but protecting ourselves. Do you know that if there's a coup, for example, in Ghana, the only station will close down. The only station that we will listen to will be GBC, where the military junta, the leader, will go and make a statement. There will be Class FM, there will be Peace FM, there will be Adon, there will be Joy, there will be CTFM, there will be any radio station, every radio station. That will be the first announcement. So don't jump beyond Ghana to look at the church in South Africa. The church here, where you are sitting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll take the last.
Of the interdependence of the continent. That one country depends on the other. Now that we are calling for free movement of goods and services, when there is any coup in any other country, it affects the other. Let's see what is happening in Burkina Faso, for instance. Is it not affecting us? Now they are saying we are intentionally throwing out Fulanis in the name of getting rid of Burkina Faso, and that is not. It doesn't also call for unity on the continent. With African Union, we say one voice, one Africa, and yet what do we see? Coups all over. So it depends on us. It behoves on we, the media, to call on all the African nations to come together as one, for us to get the one continent and the one voice we are asking for. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I remember in the 2024 budget, we put some amount for gratification to enable the bureau, especially the president and his team, to be able to go around the country. And during the defense of the budget, then the usual PRC was fighting to take it out. No. This one is the legal council that's supposed to do that. We argued, and the legal council was in the meeting. And they themselves said that, look, this will be best done by PAP itself than we being asked to do it, because they are parliamentarians in their various countries. They were able to advocate for it better, and yet still the PRC Council diverted from the budget of PAP, and is insisting that we should rather team up with legal counsel. So it brings us to what the Federal Speaker say. We are not able to move to do that kind of lobbying, unless if the president is one of the things that the president of PAP has been doing if for any reason a meeting brings him to Ghana, then he takes advantage to meet the president and the foreign minister and canvas for application. But you see, it is different from if you have a budget line and you decide that I need 13 countries out of the almost what you call 32 or 37 that have not yet ratified. Let me target 20 and vigorously go there and talk to them, and let me see this year whether I'm able to bring 5 on board. That's different from if you wait for some meeting to happen and then when you are in Ghana or you are in Togo, then now you want to take advantage to talk about it. But that's one of the main challenges. But the second one that unfortunately has resistance, and I've said it on the floor of an African Parliament several, that I don't see why, if Ghana has not ratified, why should Muntaka chair finance committee? Let's use that as a bait. One, your country has not ratified. We can't say you shouldn't come here, but you can't be in any of the leadership position. Then that will put pressure on the country's delegation to begin putting pressure on their foreign ministers and their government to render, because they are also parliamentarians in their country. Because ironically, you have the president of Pan African Parliament who is Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe hasn't ratified. Why should that happen? We should just deny them that, oh, you'll be here, but you cannot be rapporteur, you cannot be vice chair, you cannot be chair, you cannot lead the organ unless your country has ratified. But unfortunately, because of the opportunities that are there for chairing, vice, and rapporteur, and because many more, remember, out of 54, even those that may participate at a time, let's say even if they are 48, and only 15 have ratified. And every time you have about 33 countries who have not ratified, so they are the majority. So they will just come and say, no, that way we do not help. But I was very sure that that was one of the easiest way to get members to what we call it, take it more serious. But lastly, one of the things that we have introduced now in PAP is that each time we go, you have to now come and report on your country's situation. So the last time we were in Ghana, we have to report on Ghana's situation. What is the state of our democracy? What is happening in Ghana? And among the key indicators is to report about the ratification. Maybe if the embarrassment keeps coming, you get out from Ghana. Why is Ghana not ratified? Oh, we are on it. Maybe that will be enough pressure to let the delegation take it more serious. Maybe these are just a few things that we've been doing. Thank you very much. Parliament is one of advocacy, and our main is we represent people. One of the reasons this meeting is important to us is for people to know us as this our delegation that represent us the Pan African Parliament. But more importantly, at our last plenary meeting, we had a workshop on the FTA, and we had the opportunity to discuss and explore how the business people in our specific countries will take advantage of the opportunities within the FCTA. And if you're not careful, we will glow in the thinking that the headquarters is in our country, therefore, naturally, opportunities will flow. No, you have to take advantage of the rules, the regulations, in order to be able to get the advantages. But as I said, our businessmen and women are yet to be sensitized. And one of the challenges we raised is prepare the important materials, important literature that will teach the business people and help. So this delegation will make it part of our responsibility to lead the advocacy and to help the Ministry of Trade, committees of trade, to get the materials and information and push them to be talking to those who can have the advantage in that respect. Yesterday, I met a delegation from an university in America, and they asked about FCT. I said, the real challenge is to be sure that I'm not going to bring things from China to come and sell in Uganda. That when I want to market in Uganda, I want things that are done in Ghana. And if Uganda is bringing something here, they're going to bring it from Taiwan and to come to sell it to me because there's free trade agreement. But how do we monitor these? What rules guide us? And then how do we deepen the local entrepreneurship and the local production so that we can then take it beyond our borders to take advantage of the entity. But we accept that responsibility as members of African Parliament and who do the advocacy, share the material that we get from other countries to help the Ghanaian business people to take advantage of the FCTA arrangement. We, the Africans, must know of this past. And I have asked EcoBank, you are the Pan African bank that we have, why have you not still fully gone onto the past? They say, oh, they are looking at by the end of this year. You are in the media, some of you are advocating for business. We need to put pressure on our own institutions to go and take them back. Because that's the first step. If I can now buy tickets, I can do a lot of things. I don't need to convert it to dollar or euro or pound to do it. I can just pay with my city and that's it. That would be the starting point. And you know, Ghana, because now we have two companies majoring in tiles production, a lot of the West African and African countries are beginning to buy their tiles from Ghana. And I think that's even one of the systems that they use during the testing between Ghana and Nigeria. Nigeria is doing a lot of fertilizer and other things. Can we all know, can we popularize, if you go to their site, the after site, it will tell you all the things that are available within the continent. And even sometimes to the extent of their pricing and how those movement arrangements will be done. I know one of the challenges is we will not develop our trading route very well. If we want to buy something from Senegal, I'm told sometimes it has to go all the way to Europe before it will come to Ghana. When we are all in the same zone. It is only when we ourselves increase the trade among us that those routes will be developed. And to come at a cost. So what we mean is that if you are importing something from China, it may take 6 weeks to get to Ghana. If I'm buying maybe from Senegal, it may take 8 weeks. But I should see the 2 additional weeks delay as my contribution to developing the route. That's the only way we can develop as a continent and unite our people. So this is some of the advocacy that we as members of PAM will be doing to make sure that the African people know that there's this advantage they can take. Because one of the biggest headache that is affecting all the African continent is this foreign currency challenge. You want to buy something, you have to buy it in euro. You have to do something, you have to get the dollar. You have to do that. If you can then use your rand and buy anything from Ghana and pay without bothering yourself when you look for foreign currency, can you imagine how likely it will be? So we all have a role. Just as we have a role, we believe that people have a role to help override the past, before the past. That's PAPS. That's the Pan African Payment Settlement System. PAPSS. Yes, before the past. So let us all popularize it. And I'm sure when we do that, it will encourage the banks. Because what we are demanding from the bank, they are only selling through that. That's when they begin producing the cars that will enable us to do that. And through that, we'll all be able to contribute to make Africa a resources. Thank you very much.
Was in an African party. And we're doing so well. I think after speaking, Mutaka will add a little to it because we don't have the funds. It's all about advocacy. Now that we are calling on women's participation in political, economic, and our social spheres around the continent, we the women are not getting enough funds to roll out the activities we want to do. For instance, we were debating on the conflict in Sudan and how it is affecting women and children. The Women Caucus wanted to make a move into Sudan. I was for some time ago on mission in South Sudan, and I can tell you the happenings there. It is to the advantage of women and children. But how do we take this move? We don't have that funds. And women also want to participate in election monitoring. Pan Africa, African Union for that matter, they will tell you we don't have the money. So we go in there, do all the debates, the theory, and then when it comes to action, we are stuck. We make all the recommendations, and then each and every member is asked to go back home, advocate on it, because we want all women on the continent to be empowered. How do we do that? I submit my report, and that is the end of my day. So it goes back to the press and the media. Help us to advocate for more funds, and I'll dwell on what Honorable Muntaka said, the payment of the PAPSS, so that Pan-African Parliament and AU for that matter will get enough funds for we the women also to roll out our activities. Thank you.
Press conference for me is a very beautiful exercise. I regret that we didn't start early, but I must give credit to APN for the pressure they put on us to hold this press conference. I think it's a very welcome step. Our expectation is that for the next 1 week, we will hear you talking about Pan-African Parliament and how we can take it from here, talking about the AFCTA and the payment system which have been instituted, the advantages there are. We encourage you to bring people who understand the system to talk so that the business people can be interested and they ask questions, show them where to go for further information. I'm counting on you as our partners to educate the public as our partners. This is our advocacy responsibility as the Pan African Parliament. But on behalf of the Pan African Parliament delegation, we thank you very much for the opportunity to interact with you on this occasion.